Good morning. Welcome to live streaming with me, Rachel. I'm going to be working on coding, but first, I'm going to make sure my encoder's working. The encoder's what sends the stream data, like the video and stuff, to all the places it's supposed to go to. And it looks like it is working, and we're just waiting on YouTube. Start again. Wait. Loading. And it works. Fantastic. Hi. Welcome to Livecoding with me, Rachel. And the audio levels are great. I hope everyone's having a great Friday. I've already had a long morning. Howdy. We are going to be working on a project that we've been working on for a while. And basically it is a quiz. So I'm gonna pull up the quiz that it is based on. It's based on this New York Times dialect quiz from 2013. And the idea is you go through and you get asked some questions like how would you address a group of 2 or more people, and then you originally would pick the answer, and for our quiz you just type in the answer and then you go through all the questions, and at the end it sounds like, oh, you sound like you're from blah. And we are collecting the answers to the quiz through something called a form. So in Rasa, a form is a way to collect a bunch of information that you need to do something. And we store that information in something called slots that are, maintained over the course of the conversation that you can update the information in if you need to. And we're doing this in a little bit of a funky way. So pop open my actions so you can see where my code is now, and then we can talk about what we're gonna do today. There we go. So this actions.py file is just a Ravi sounds good. Hi, hey Faiza, hey Ravi. Nice to see y'all. So this is a Python file that is running our form, so it's collecting all this information. And also it is running our classifier, so once we have all the answers, trying to figure out where the person is from. And I should say the data that we use to train the classifier and the original quiz are provided to us courtesy of Bert Vox, sorry. Thank you very much, Bert. As part of the Harvard Dialect Survey. So, the original quiz was multiple choice. Hi, Osvaldo. Where each of the questions had multiple choice answers, and users would pick one of them, or quiz filler outs. Participants, respondents, however you want to call them. And, no, I don't want to know what a static method is. Thanks, VS Code. It was originally multiple choice, and we are doing it as, should not be a leading space there. And we are instead doing it as free response, which is actually a, in terms of eliciting dialect information like this, is a generally considered to be a better way of getting that information. So we have all of these multiple choice questions, and what we are accepting is anything the user types in. And then we're using fuzzy matching to find, for the particular question we just asked, for the piece of information we want, which of the things in our database, it's a database, right? We just have it directly in our Python file. I could have it as like an actual database if you're doing data validation. Which of these things is the one that we actually want to use, and if none of them match super well, then we give the answer other to that particular question. And what this means is, because we want to be able to handle like differences and noise in the text. So noise in text just means input that is not exactly the way that you expected it to be when you originally wrote the program. So if everyone says BERM perfectly exactly like the way it is here, we won't have any problems. If people begin to produce alternate spellings for this, we're more likely to run into problems. So when you ever hear people talk about noisy text, usually it will have typos, it'll have variant spellings, it'll have, different capitalization, it might have multiple, special characters in it, that sort of thing. So because we're doing it that way, with a very flexible way where users can put in anything and we handle it behind the scenes, what had happened was we were accepting any intent as a response to the form. So if the user was like, stop the conversation, I want to leave, we'd just be like, that sounds the most like rummage sale, next question, and just continue through the conversation that way. And what we did last Wednesday, 2 days ago, was we fixed it so that if you have another intent in the middle, it should be handled pretty well. So let's give this a shot real quick just to see where we are right now and then talk about what we want to change. Oh, I didn't. One sec. Let's just restart. Do I still have my... Yeah, okay, excellent. So I still have my action server running, which is what is serving the code here in this actions.py file. Faiza says, is that a dictionary? Yes, so my database in this case is a dictionary, but it could be anything. It couldn't be anything because it is not tabular. So if you look at this, you can see for each of these answers, we have a different number of things that it could be. So like for yard sale, we've got like what, 10, 11, and then for I'm trying to find one with a few lightning bug. I'm trying to find an example that only has a couple of answers. Oh, for lawyer, we only have 4. There we go. So we couldn't efficiently store this in a tabular data structure. I mean, we could. We'd have lots of repetition or a lot of empty cells, and it would be very sparse. And I chose a dictionary instead. So we were talking to our assistant. So we still have our action server going. We just killed our Rasa server, so I'm just going to talk to Rasa in the shell. I could use a local version of Rasa X. I could use the Rasa X that I have running on a server, but that's a sort of a stable version. And what I would need to do is I'd need to save a Docker image with the latest version of my actions file and then relaunch the assistant with that latest versions of my action server. And that's more steps than I want to do right now, where we're still just sort of playing around. Although we did just recently add a GitHub action that will launch your action server for you. So I know there's some talk about that the last time that I talked about action servers. So I think that's just on the Rasa HQ GitHub, pretty sure. All right, so we have our assistant here, and we're going to start our quiz, and in the middle of the quiz, I'm going to do something else. So yes, I'd like to take a quiz, love quizzes. Oh, I'd call that a roly-poly. All right. Oh, we have a new question. Actually, I want to know, are you a bot? So this should be identified as a bot challenge. And then you see the answer, are you a bot powered by Rasa? And then I get asked if I want to continue. I did all this last time. So I'm gonna say, yes, I'd love to continue. And then at this point, we have this sort of frustrating interaction where what the form is doing is it's trying to fill the slot beverage. So it's looking for something like soda, pop, Coke, and it's also looking for an inform intent. So this is, I'm assuming, an affirm AFFIRM intent. This should be a bot challenge intent, and it hasn't seen the inform intent that it needs, and it's still looking for the answer to the last question that it asked. And it's not asking the question again. So what I want to figure out how to do today is if people say that they want to continue, I want to re-ask them the last question that they got. And I haven't done this before, so we're going to be spending some time in the docs and just working on making this conversation go a little bit more smoothly, because this is a little bit stilted. That's what we're doing. Retracted. I want to do a dictionary like medication is key and description is value. When a user enters a medication name but failed. Do you want to look up a key by value from a dictionary? So, you can do that by something like this. So I've defined this answers DB as a static object in this method, which is why I'm using self here to refer to it. So just your dictionary and then the name of the slot that you want the value of, and that'll return all the values. Hopefully that's what you were looking for. So what's going to be the best way to find the information that we're looking at? I'm going to look up forms on the Rasa docs. Actually, I'm going to look up resuming forms. So this one, I believe, is going to be broken. Okay, noted. Might have to let Akila know about that. All right, so let's check out the forms in here and see if we can get some more helpful information. Handling unhappy paths, handling conditional slot logic. So right now we're working on an unhappy path, which is where the thing that you sort of want your users to do when they go through the assistant is not happening. So in this case, they start a form and then they stop it. So this is the this is sort of the general way that we are handling it right now. Actually, no, we're using this one. Strongly recommended that you build these stories using interactive learning. So we might do that next. That might be an easier way to do it. Slot request slot, restaurant form in Greek. Interactive learning, conditional slot logic. All right, yeah, let's kick open a local Rasa X. I also want to add this. I mean, we can probably just add this just as is and then change the name of our form to be something more helpful. But yeah, let's kick open a Rasa X instance and do some interactive learning and work on it that way. So this should be in stories. Not challenge. Let's see, this would be interactive form. Stop, interrupted form. Continue. I'm just giving the stories unique names, so it's a little bit easier to follow what's going on. Chit chat. No, sorry, I made it too big. Interrupted form, chit chat. Okay. And then the only things that we need to change are these guys. And then chit chat. So chit chat is a sort of general purpose and intent we had built into Rasa that's sort of like, hey, how are you? And the assistant's like, I'm great. So just sort of like the turns, conversational turns that don't really convey a lot of information, but that make it feel a little bit more natural. Form, and then we turn it off, and then all of this should also be added to this as well. All right, great. So we've saved that. I think we're actually going to need to retrain real quick, and then we can launch Rasa X. So Control C to stop the server. Rasa train, and I need to retrain because I've changed some of the stories, so the dialogue management policy, the dialogue policy rather, is going to be updated. Lisa says, when you're filling a form, since we didn't do something like mapping the bot response in the domain file or action file and the intents in stories, how would slot mapping work in a form filling? That's a great question. So the sort of the slot mapping is directly handled by forms. Like that's why you use them, is you need to fill a lot of slots, if that makes sense. So if we look at the form itself, we have, so I'm doing a lot of sort of like funky things for validation. So this is the sort of the business part of it that says, here's how the slots are going to be filled. So we have, you know, here are all the specific slots that we know are going to be filling. Here's the ways that we can fill them. And then the specific question that we ask is in the domain file. And it's this utter_ask_slot name. So here, utter_ask_bug, what do you call a small bug? This is what's going to be asked to fill this bug slot if it hasn't already been filled before the form is launched. If it's filled before the form is launched, it doesn't get asked again. And the ways that that can be filled is if that the conversation has the bug entity slot already filled, we'll use that. Otherwise, if the intent is in form, we'll just take the text and then run validation on that text. And the validation is done through another part of the function. So I could also just stick with this self from text. This from text means that any input is going to be used. The from entity means it's only going to be stuff that's in the entity. So we have specified everything just in a very, you know, parsimonious way, and that's why you would use a form. So you don't have to have like a conversation about all the different ways that people might ask questions and get their, you know, during the conversation fill those slots that contain information. Yeah. Okay, so are you... Monologues train. Core training is skipped because no domain file was found. Ah, beans. All right. Somewhere I have a syntax error in my YAML. It's usually what that means. As long as there's a domain file actually in your current directory. Oh, beans. Yep, we're in the area with the domain file. So, unknown intent, thank you, on line 74, unknown intent, chit chat, unknown intent, greet. Okay, so all of the intents are unknown because, we have this issue. Line 101, utter_ask continue with value. Line 101 and then line 175. Line 101. Utter start quiz. Okay, and then 170. Ask. Yeah, okay, so I have two. There we go. So I have two things called utter_ask continue. Let's save that and let's see if we can retrain and if that fixes it or not. It's not what I wanted. Train it. There we go. Okay. Okay, excellent. So that was the problem, was just that we had repeated an utterance, and that should be fixed now. Okay. Now let's launch Rasa X in local mode. And use that to use interactive learning to create some of these sort of interrupted conversation examples. And this is just a bunch of errors because I've saved all my trained models, okay? I haven't gotten rid of any of them, and many of them were trained with earlier versions of Rasa, so. Yep, I would love to update this, but we're not gonna be able to do it until the TensorFlow text supports. Task was destroyed, but it was pending async IO. Ooh. Open my Rasa X instance. So it just opens in your default browser, which is Chrome for me right now. And if we select a model, I actually want the most recent model. Let's have an interactive conversation real quick. So we start our conversations by saying hi. Action listen is just how your assistant waits for the human. Do you want to take a quiz? Yes, I'd love to take a quiz. Would help if I was actually in the correct text spot. All right, so then we have, what do you call a small bug? So I'd say that's a roly-poly. And then I'm going to interrupt the conversation. Ah! Not what I wanted. Well, I'm gonna relaunch Rasa X. Or does it have Oh, and it doesn't matter that I'm showing this because this is on my local machine and y'all can't use it. All right, let's kick this off one more time. And this time I'm not gonna hit log out like a dingus. Do you want to take a quiz? I'd love to take a quiz. Phaser says, utter ask bug and other utter questions. How are they ran? How do they know that when you put the entities in the list to return, the bot question flow as the entities are slot list you specify? So I'm specifying that in the form code. So when I showed you that bit earlier, that it was like, hey, these are the slots I want you to ask. And here's the intents that it will allow it. Once I start the form, so in my story, I have this elicitation form begins. The elicitation form's like, okay, these are the slots I need to fill. So I'm just going to go through and ask questions for each of the slots that are not already filled. So the form handles it, right? And it knows what questions to ask because I've used the entity name the slot name that I'm trying to fill in questions in my, or utterances in my domain file, the utter ask bug. So the utter ask syntax needs to be like that so that the assistant's like, okay, I need to fill the slot. Oh, here's the utterance. Ask that. Okay, I asked that. Here's the information. Okay, I know how to validate that. I'm going to use that to fill the slot, and then the next question, and so on and so forth, all the way until all of the required slots are filled. Hopefully that makes sense. So you don't have to use a form to do this. A form just makes your life easier because there's less typing, right? It's more concise. All right, let's interrupt this conversation. Are you a bot? You can see here that it has requested this slot bug. Execution, action execution rejected, I'm a bot powered by Rasa. Okay. And then it should utter ask continue, but I don't actually see the utterance there. So I'm going to correct this actually. And I want to go back. Okay, so it's a bot challenge has been given. What do we do? We're going to utter I am a bot. Yep. So that's what we want to do next. And then we're going to want to do the form again. So it should just be called elicitation form. Yep. That is what we want to do next. Great, yes, this is exactly what we want, and then we want to listen for the answer. So you can see that what happened here was that we restarted the conversation, and we re-requested this slot. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to continue to go through and have the rest of the conversation, and then I'm going to save this as a story, and I'm also going to save it. Oh, I can't. Well, I still haven't fixed the Git problem. Listen, a lot on my plate right now. I had 2 talks this week, which were great. One yesterday was about multilingual AI for the WUI meetup in Munich. Obviously, I used the internet to do it. That's a roly poly. So let's just take a quick break and go through our quiz and answer all the questions. And the classifier is not going to run because of subversion mismatches. And this is why I hate serializing models, but I did it anyway, and I knew it would be a problem, and look, it's a problem, and I have nobody to blame but me. That's soda. Mm. Oh, I'd actually really like a soda right now. I'm not usually a soda person, but like, Coke sounds good. Or when we would, so I'm from rural Virginia, and one of the things we did in the summer is make hay, and it's the worst. Making hay is the worst. And when we were getting hay, we'd get Surge, which is like it's like the Coke version of Mountain Dew. It's like a citrusy, very caffeinated soda. Anyway, I could go for Surge right now, and that's the whole thing I have to say. And yes, I am doing better today. I don't know why. Slept great last night. Woke up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Hot and caught, those are different. And Faisa says, the game is naming the udder asks the slot name, and then the form knows which questions to come first based on the list starting the actions. Yes, exactly. Oh, good night, Robbie. What do you call it when rain falls when the sun is shining? I don't know. I don't have a word for that. And I'm actually going to zoom out a tiny bit so we get the, we go to the bottom of the discussion. I call that a crawfish. Or crawdad. Speaking of country stuff, I've never gone, but when my mom was growing up, she used to go gigging, which is when you go out at night with like a flashlight and like a pointy stick and you go and hunt frogs. I never did that. We didn't really live next to any great marshes, and also I don't think she enjoyed it especially. So I don't think she had like great memories of it. But some American culture for y'all. I don't have a word for that. Actually, what if I say like October 30th? It's coming up too. What will that be matched to? Oh, action execution rejected action default fallback. So they didn't understand me, so I would say maybe I don't know. Dead. So this was identified as greet, but with pretty low confidence. So we got this default action where the assistant's like, I don't know what that is. What did you say? And the reason that that just sort of wasn't handled the way we've been doing it earlier is that we have we've specified that we're looking for the elicitation to the data to come from this inform intent. So we can go back and delete this later on. And then here it's been mapped to I have no word from this, from I don't know. What do you call a long sandwich with meat, veggies, and other toppings? And call that a sub. What do you call a small road parallel to the highway? Access. Or an access road. I feel like my dad might say frontage road, but I don't think I say that. Tennis shoes. So this is what the assistant does. It runs you through this quiz. I call that a highway. And at the end of the quiz, it runs a classifier, which is broken right now and are new to fix. And then once it's a yard sale, once our classifier is fixed, it'll tell you the 3 states where the people who took the quiz originally have answers that most closely match yours. Rubbernecking. Or maybe rubberneckers. Alright. Do you say frosting or icing for the sweet spread you put on cake? That's frosting. Icing has to dribble. Does the first syllable of lawyer rhyme with boy or loy? Boy. Sorry, boy or law. So like lawyer. It's oof. If you want to hear somebody who says lawyer, Virgil Goode, Goode, who's a politician from Central Virginia that is but a great example of a sort of a Piedmont dialect. If you're ever curious. He ran for president, which oof. As like a third party candidate. Kitty corner. What do you call an insect that flies around in the summer and glows after dark? Firefly. Or lightning bug. I think I say firefly more though. That's a verge. Through. Very regional term that for a drive-through liquor store. Which so it's illegal to drive with an open container in most US states. All of them as far as I know. So what they do is like if you get like a cocktail or something, they give it to you in like a sealed cup. And you drive to a secondary location to consume it. Water fountain. All right, and now it's trying to run the form. Ooh, interesting. All right, so it's it gave me the default fallback, and it should in fact tell me what the slots are. So I believe that is utter slots. Is that what I called it? Slot values, utter slot values. So now it should just tell us what all our answers are. And if I were at some point in the future, I want to like make these like a little bit fancier, like maybe like for each slot, percentage of respondents that had that as their response. Oh, sorry, I have to say yes. That's actually what I want you to do. Whoopsies. And then it should run detect dialect. There we go. And so this is the action that's not working right now. It's going to run our classifier and set the dialect slots, and then it should utter dialect. Is that what I called it? Utter dialect value. So now it should tell you what 3 states people in the US speak most like you in. So it should say you sound like you come from, and then 3 states, but again, broken right now. And then it should listen. So action listen. So just wait for the user to say something. And then we should say, I'm going to say something like, okay, thanks. And then the assistant should say, no worries. All right. Utter no worries. And as you add more conversations and as you retrain your assistant and it gets, better at handling save this story. And as you talk to your assistant more, as other people talk to your assistant, as you correct the conversations, as you have more data that's specific to your use, and then you continue to retrain, redeploy, retrain, redeploy, more data, annotate, etc., etc., etc. The whole process is called conversation-driven development. But the idea is that your assistant gets better over time because it learns from conversations. It learns. That sounds like it's doing it independently because you are continuing to improve the assistant. And our story should be updated here in just a second. I remember the other day when we did this, it took a bit. Maybe we needed to copy and paste. Also, I've lost my... Where'd you go? Interrupted from So you can see we have all the stories that we created. There's the one that we just saved. This one. Right? Today's October 2nd. Interesting. So this is part... This is part of the assistant. Part of the conversation we just had, but not all of it. And this is part of the conversation we just had with the assistant, but not all of it. Right? Does this have the whole thing? Yeah. Do I have my server open in another window? Is that what's happened? Okay, sorry. So we are in a little bit of a weird state here where it looks like the tracker store is shared between two conversations. So if we look at this one, right, you can see that we asked for a slot, and then the slot rubbernecking is filled, and then all the slot values are uttered, and then the dialect classifier is run, and then we tell people the dialect, and they say, "Oh, thanks." And then here we have part of this conversation. So it's the greeting, it's the response to it being a bot, and then it starts partway through the elicitation form and goes through. But you can see this one doesn't have the October 30th answer that we gave. And then we just see some like default actions. And then this one is like the first couple turns in a conversation. So I think this one is the one I logged out during. So it looks like the conversation that we had is actually being split as two conversations. And my guess is that we didn't get a new tracker store. Why would this be split over two conversations? This is a weird state. This is not, I don't think I have this open in a second window. Let's check our, yeah, this one. Let's check what happened here real quick. Listen, yep, that's fine. Found in your stories when we added this to the domain. Saving event failed due to an integrity error. This means that the event was already stored in the database. The event data was times that. Okay, so this is the sender ID, which I imagine we're gonna see throughout. So it ends in BD0, BD0. User message ID. Form. Looking at what's happening in each of these. Due to an integrity error. And this is from sender B48. 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 That's just the name of the sender B48. And I'm looking for this other user whose name ended in BD0. So somehow we got into a state where a conversation had two or possibly three users. CD3. Interesting. Well, that's wild. That's really weird. This has never happened to me before. CD3. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at this event data and I'm looking at the sender ID. So this is one conversation we're having with our assistant. So we should, except we logged out. So we should have, two maximum sender IDs. And it looks like we have three. We have the CD3, we have the one with the 8 and the 0, and then we have that last one that I don't remember. And it looks like we were doing pretty good with having one consistent user ID. And then it switched to a new one at some point in a way that we didn't want, right? And we get a lot of these integrity errors where it looks like things are being overwritten. So I am in a weird state and I don't know why. All right, let's kill our server and restart and see if we can replicate this. Because it could be just that we've had our action server open a really long time, and the action server is what's running the it could just be that we've had our action server open a really it could be that we have two action servers running and it's trying to like switch between them a little bit. And actually, let's just start with like a brand new shell. Just start from scratch. Why not? Completely blank slate. Because I think I have had my action server just sort of up and running locally since Wednesday. Although we did have like a power flicker. Alright. Blank slate, see what happens, and then we'll get over. I should just create scenes that have me on each side so I don't have to drag myself back and forth. Anyway, y'all don't need to worry about that. Also run actions. So let's start a brand new action server. And I'm gonna add logging, but not like crazy logging. So 1v is just add logging, 2v's is like, tell me everything, I must know, all the details. Alright, action server's up and running, that looks good. And then we're gonna start Rasa X locally again. I got my warnings about my models that I trained with an old version of Rasa. Yep, alright. So, let's pop open this bad boy. Okay, so we have some conversations. Okay, so is this the conversation? Okay, so this is the full conversation. This is like the second half of the conversation, this one. And this one is just a bunch of errors, and this one is the very first thing that we said, and then the very last thing that we said. Mysterious, excuse me. And if we check under stories. Yeah. I'm just gonna get rid of this story. I don't trust it. But we do have all of the stories that we added. And we should be good to go. And so right now I don't think we have a toxic language intent, but we do have this action pause conversation that just stops talking to the person if they say something that we identify as toxic language, and we can add stuff to that intent as it comes up. So let's talk to our assistant and take it from the top. Right. Just have the one thing open. Strict mode button to validate every step of the conversation. Okay. Let's start our conversation. Oh, excuse me. Okay, and we are right at the beginning, right? Because we have our action session start, and then listen, which is just like wait for user input. And then we say hi, and this should be identified as greet, yep, and then start quiz. Yes, I'd love to start a quiz. We're gonna go through this one more time. And I'm just going to answer other for all of them, just to make my life a little bit easier. So we start the form, and then we wait for user in. Interesting. So at this point, we should see the first question in the form. So this is the correct thing that we want to do, but we don't see the question in the form. So is this being shown in another conversation, is my question. No, looks like it isn't. My action server is up and running, right? Let's check our action server. I turned on logging, as I remember. All right, so this is saving event failed due to integrity error. This meant the event is already stored in the database. From sender FD4. I'm just looking at the last three codes of the sender because it should be for a small number of senders unique. All right. Nothing's happened at the endpoint. It should have launched the form, and it didn't. What endpoint are you on? You are on 5005, right? 505. 5055, and that is the endpoint I'm pointing you towards, right? 5055, yep. And I'm specifying the URL rather than localhost. Do I get the same problem with shell? I'm gonna stop you. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Start a new window. Rasa shell. I wonder if it's because I ran the shell while the action server was running. Future warning, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't care. Yes, let's start the quiz. Roly-poly. Okay, we've got an answer to the quiz, and then I'm going to go off the rails. I'm going to do something surprising. Are you a bot? And then yes. Yeah. So it's definitely something with Rasa X. Enrique says, it seems the new browser kept the session and the tracker was still running in the background. Yeah, I'd agree. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the tracker is the thing that stores the history of the conversation. So everything that you've done during the conversation is stored in this, database. Oh, do you see what I see? I see some. Remember how we had 3 conversations? Yeah. Right here, I have 3 event databases. So this is where we store the tracker if you're using Rasa X in local mode. I'm wondering if it's if it's creating new versions of the tracker every time we launch Rasa X, and then there's no like clear way to pick the tracker, and you should only have 1 tracker at a time. So I'm gonna try deleting these and see if that helps. Yes. All right, so get rid of you. Get rid of you as well, I think. Make sure everybody's saved. We've got a new model, no surprise. Yeah, keep this. Yes, okay, excellent. So let's start again and see if that will fix it. Press. That's nothing. Rasa run actions. All right, we're good to go. And now let's try launching Rasa X, see what happens. Good things, hopefully. That's what I'd like to see. Starting in local mode, fantastic. Hey, these models were trained with an older version. Yep, that could be. And then we get that job lib category and job lib warning, which, yep. And then we got the, oh, how long have you been open? Peace out. Perhaps that was our issue. So now we should have, let's see, what do we got? Okay, so all of these have been deleted. Let's start a new conversation. Move myself over again. Yeah, and it just takes a little bit to launch. All right, let's start it. Hi. Love to take a quiz. Yes, please. It's a roly-poly. Yeah, okay, so what I think happened, just to talk it through a little bit, is that we were seeing one conversation, but the underlying data structure that was storing the history of the conversation was being split across multiple little databases at random, I guess. Which is why when we looked back at the conversations, they were stored as like fragments of our conversation selected together. And I think that might be due to the fact that I had a logged out version of Rasa X running as well as this version of Rasa X. So. Are you a bot? I'm a bot powered by Rasa. Do you want to continue? Yes. All right, so at this point, it should say slot bug roly poly. Oh. Unask bug. Right? Is that the one we were on? No, incorrect. Incorrect. Okay. I think I'm just going to say elicitation form. I think that I don't want to say I corrected too much. I scrolled up and then said correct this. So the next thing that it should do is activate the elicitation form. Enrique says, I tried container deployment and Rasa X image is really big, almost 3 gigs, too much for container image. Yeah, we were actually talking about that recently. Something's up. I don't remember where the conversation went. It was very early in the morning for me when I was catching up on it. But I would post about it on the forums and tag actually just post about it on the Rasa forum and tag me, and I'll pass it on to somebody who can help a little bit. But yeah, it is very big. Very big. And I forget what the then it should listen. And I forget what the outcome of the conversation was, but it was like, this is a problem. Roly poly. Oh, I should just keep saying other, huh? That's what I said I was gonna do. Are you a bot? Alright, so at this point it should reply Utter, I am a bot. Alright. Saley says, can you recommend any databases or models to identify Indian names in a text? I'm using Spacey currently. It's not doing a good job with identifying Indian names. I don't know of anything off the top of my head, but there should be something. You might be able to find like a names database. Do like fuzzy matching with that? What did I say? Yep, and then listen. Yep, that's what I want. Oh no. We should say something else in here. I'm losing focus. Let's no, let's power through. I was gonna say, let's call it a day here. No, we can power through. So it should say, are you resetting us back to the top of the elicitation form every time, and it did not do that before. What is this action execution rejected thing? I don't think I've run into this before. From the forums. I was just talking about them. I'm confused. Blah, 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 blah. Action card issue, execution. Oh, okay. So it's a form thing. The action there is specifically raised to let Rasa Core know that it should ignore its action prediction and try another policy. Gotcha. So that is happening because I said, hey, we should start the form. Gotcha. Yeah, let's just start again from the top. From the top. And try to go through. And if we run into weird issues again, I might just take a break. Get coffee. I'm flagging. It's coffee time. Enrique says, mixing the torch and TensorFlow dependencies make it bigger, I think. Yeah, that would make sense. Not sure if it uses torch also. I don't know off the top of my head. I think the majority of stuff we do is with TensorFlow. But you might have something in your pipeline that relies on torch. That's in the wrong order. Interesting. I think I'm just in a weird state. I am gonna call this here. I'm not entirely sure what's up. Let me double check. Yeah, and we have 3 copies of the events database as well. Events.db-shm. Well, top result is my own dang GitHub. Yeah, there's 5 results for this events.db-shm if I just look it up, and the top one is me. I wonder if this is a Windows thing, perhaps. Interesting. So he says, I observed that when Rasa X is run locally, some of the text don't get rendered or the orders slip, just like now. It happens a lot with me too. Saley, are you on Windows? So we only relatively recently officially started supporting Windows for Rasa X. So I am wondering if it could be an OS specific issue, because I haven't run into this on Mac. If so, sounds like it's time for a bug report. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna call it here. I might need like a record of the state that I'm in currently to make sure that I can write a good, helpful bug report. Yeah, I also haven't had this issue with Rasa X in the server mode, which the one that I'm using is running on Ubuntu 16.06, I think. It's on the Linux computer, so tastes like this tastes like a Windows issue maybe. This tastes like an OS thing. Yeah, and should definitely get back to the engineering team. Yeah. Enrique says, what type of database is that? I missed that. So I believe the events database is just like where the tracker store is saved when you're running Rasa X locally. So you can see it's got, I mean, you can't really see, but it's got the information on the conversations that we've had so far, and then all of the things that happen in order and everything that's been extracted, etc., 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 etc. So the idea is that if you were running Rasa X in a server, you would have this a little bit more securely than like just a plain text file. But yeah. And Saley says, I tried running it locally on Linux as well as Windows, and you didn't use Mac, and you got the same issue on Linux? Okay, I'm gonna bring this up with the engineering team, because this feels like this feels fixable. And also, Saley, what is your version number of Rasa X? Because it could also be version specific. Take some notes. Windows and Linux. And fortunately, I can share all the steps that I did to get to the spot where I am right now, because I have the video. Linux. Conversations split across multiple senders. multiple events.db with ending, so that's a different thing. And specifically local mode. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go file a bug report right now. Yeah, and we will come back on next Wednesday for something. We might continue working on this depending on other stuff. Also, we do need to fix the job lib issue. We need to fix our model serialization so that we can unserialize our model. And I'm not looking forward to that, but we need to do it. Honestly, if I can find some sort of hierarchical model storage format that will work for the k-nearest neighbors from scikit-learn. Like, if any of y'all know of any, please just tell me. I would really appreciate that because it would make my life in the future a lot easier. All right, and then Saley says it is version 0.28.3. Thank you so much. This is very, very helpful. And then Linux and fantastic. Oh, and the other thing was the big Docker. Right, so I'm gonna call it here. I've got some writing to do. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. I will see you next Wednesday. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you then.